Welcome to another episode of Maths in an Empty Classroom with me, Mr. Southern. This is the first in a series of lessons on the normal distribution, and in this video I'm going to be looking at how to calculate probabilities using a normal distribution. So an example question here, we've got that the random variable x is such that x follows a normal distribution 62 4 squared. Now that 62 is the mean of the distribution and the 4 is the standard deviation of the distribution. Now, all normal distributions will look like this. It's a symmetrical bell-shaped curve, and the proportions within a certain amount of deviations of the mean is always going to be the same for each normal distribution. I'll deal with that a little bit more later on in the video. But first off, we're going to look at part A. We're being asked to find the probability that x is less than 65. Now what I always do with these normal distributions is I always draw them out. I draw a little line down here in the middle for the mean. So I'm just going to label that the centre point of the distribution, the mean, is 62. And we're being asked for the probability that x is less than 65. So I'm going to draw a line in somewhere over here, 65, and just shade in the area of the region that we're trying to find, because that's the probability of being less than that value. And the purpose of doing that with the picture is just to get a sense of, is it going to be more or less than 0.5, just to give me a way of checking that my answer is accurate. Now, if all you're interested in for this is getting the answer, calculating the probability, the ClassWiz calculators will do that in normal CD mode. You need to press menu and then 7, and then it's option 2. And it will ask you to put in 4 values. For the lower value, you need to put in a really large negative number, because theoretically these normal distributions extend infinitely in each direction. So we'll go ahead and put in something like minus 1,000,000, minus 10 to the power of 6, something like that. The upper is going to be 65, because that's the value that we want to know the probability up to. Now, slightly confusingly, the calculator has standard deviation and then mean when the normal distribution starts with the mean, then the standard deviation. You've just got to get over that, put it in the right way around. So the standard deviation is 4 and the mean is 62. And if I type that into the ClassWiz, it tells me that the answer is 0.7734. So I see the probability of x being less than 65 is 0.7734. Now, I just want to talk a little bit now about another normal distribution that's known as the standardised normal distribution. We don't need to use this for calculating this probability, but it's very useful for coming in later on. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to draw another normal distribution underneath this one. And I'm going to label that this one is Z following a normal distribution 0, 1, which means that it has a mean, centre value there, of 0, and its standard deviation is 1. And what you can then use is this standardising formula on this normal distribution to then be able to use this one to calculate the probabilities. Now the formula you use is Z equals x minus mean over the standard deviation, where x is your value that you're finding the probability from. Mean is obviously the mean, and standard deviation is standard deviation. So in this case, 65 was the x value, 62 was the mean, and the standard deviation was 4, which means the z value would be 0.75 or 3/4. So if I pop a line in here at 0.75, what that's saying is that 65 is 0.75 or 3/4 of a standard deviation above the mean. And the probability of being 3/4 of a standard deviation above the mean is the same for every single normal distribution, because they are all proportional to each other. So this area here, using Z, is also going to be 0.7734. And this standardised normal distribution comes in very useful later on when we have to work backwards given the probability and we have to find a value. So I wanted to make a big deal about that at this stage and show you what the standardised normal distribution does. Just very briefly talk about part B here. Again, just going back to the calculator to tell us this. What these ClassWiz calculators will do in normal CD mode is that they will tell you the probability of being in between two values. So if you put in that the lower value that you want is 58.2 and that the upper value is 70.6, tell it that the standard deviation is 4 and that the mean is 62, it will calculate that for you. So that comes out as 0.832. So the probability of x being between 58.2 and 70.6 is 0.8132. Convention is to use 4 decimal places for probabilities, and that's the level of accuracy that's given in the tables of values that you get, certainly in the Excel formula book. So that's the convention that we tend to stick to, 4 decimal places for this. Okay, join me in the next video where we'll do it all backwards.